Check, check. Audio seems good. How about this? Okay. Yeah. How we doing tonight, guys? Hey, Penbu. Hello, viewers. I'm so excited to talk about memory today. I mean, I didn't even get like, my bachelor's wasn't even in electrical engineering, so that's not really up my alley, but I took this one class on digital integrated circuits in grad school, and it's some pretty cool stuff. So I'm really excited to share today. But gonna hold off on teaching for a couple minutes in case more people want to roll in. And we're just gonna chill for a little bit. Need to set up my Krita. Make sure we're all good to go in the meantime. How are you guys all doing? How's your Tuesday? Any statespeople in the chat who had yesterday off? I think you're Canadian, right, Penbu? Your highlight for the day, Reaper. I hope I live up to it, if that's what you're hoping for. But I feel like that's like... now I'm a little bit nervous. You had last Monday off, Penbu. Okay. Yeah, I mean, yesterday was a day off, which was pretty good, but I had to spend the first half of it driving because I went to my sister's wedding on Sunday. But that was fun. You know, weddings are supposed to be a good time. Got to enjoy lots of food. We had macaroons. Delicious. Congrats to her. Yeah, Congrats to her, I guess. I am fairly happy to now be related to my... what is it, brother-in-law? Her husband? My sister's only alright, but my new brother-in-law's pretty cool. He's an engineer too. Yes, clearly, my sister who just got married is single. Working well. Yeah, engineers unite. my whole... well, I was going to say my whole family's engineers, because my mom and my dad are both... They were software engineers. Or, I think technically, like, software architects or something like that. But my sister had to go off and be special and become a doctor, so... good for her, I guess. But we're all we're a STEM family, I guess. And yeah, so she had her wedding on Sunday. I had a decent drive to get there, and oh my god, I went to the wedding and I wore this like cute pair of boots, and I hadn't worn it in a while. But when I got there and I was like walking around, the soles just started disintegrating on me. Like, beginning of the day it was completely there, end of the day, sole gone. Sole of the boot completely gone. The rubber just fell apart. But other than that, it was a good wedding. Ceremony nice and short, so we didn't have to sit outside for like hella long. Okay, you guys all see this? Boots kick the... Penboo? Do you ever feel bad? Do you feel bad about what you did? You should feel bad. That was a bad one. Okay. But yeah, today's topic is memory. It's mainly stuff that I honestly learned in grad school, but I'm gonna take basically I'm gonna take like 99% of the math out of it. So it should be at least somewhat tangible to everyone. Hi, Perry. How are you? I was talking to Penboo. He made a terrible joke in the YouTube chat. Because he was saying my boots kicked the bucket. Their souls just went off to heaven. Disintegrated. Thanos snapped out of existence. I'm doing alright, Perry. I mean, work is sort of farming me. School is sort of farming me. But it's more or less what I signed up for. And I get to teach engineering today. So I'm pretty stoked. Finished my lesson plan like a little under an hour ago. So you can tell that I have had not that much time to rehearse, but I think it should go well. Okay. It is 7 past, so we'll get started in, I don't know, 3 minutes? At 10 past? Make sure the notes are all here. Do you guys hear when I ruffle the pages on my notebook? Yeah, it looks like the mic picks it up. Okay. I will try to minimize that. Definitely hear some papers. Yeah, I'm sorry. I unfortunately cannot yet teach this by heart, and I feel like I am better able to demonstrate things when I draw them out instead of having like PowerPoint slides. So I want to draw out my lesson plans usually, and it's always good to have like pre-prepped physical notes so that I can just sort of copy diagrams and not forget what they look like. Yeah, I mean, I do the lesson planning, but last time I taught on stream, it sort of went out the window, so maybe maybe it's not that helpful. I think I just need to get better at teaching. And that's what someone on the teaching subreddit said, was just practice, which makes a lot of sense. I hope I can slowly get better at not just teaching, but also streaming, because I'd like to be a better entertainer. Yeah, I hope I get into the groove. Because it's important to have the right personality to be entertaining. I can have this cute little model and be super cutesy and anime, but if I'm like a boring person, then it's not gonna stick with people. But I think today it'll probably be good because I'm like super stoked to talk about this. This is really cool stuff. Okay, gonna turn down the background music and we'll probably get started. Alright, today we're talking about memory, like your computer memory. So this is a lot of electrical engineering, but we're gonna try and dumb it down so that hopefully the average person can understand it. It might still be a little tough for them because some of this stuff is pretty intense, but I'll do my best. Alright, so quick prefaces. Whoa. What we're talking about today specifically is called SRAM. And that is static random access memory. Okay? So this is like the stuff that goes in your RAM sticks in your computer. It's a specific type of the technology that's in your RAM sticks. Not all of the stuff in your RAM is going to be SRAM. And specifically, the technology that gets used in here is some tech called CMOS. And that stands for Complementary Metal Oxide Semiconductor. I'm not going to write that out because that's a huge pain in the ass to write out. But it's also not super important. It's just so that you know what sort of tech we're dealing with. So yeah, SRAM and CMOS. Some of the stuff I talk about today will be applicable to other things, other types of memory, but some of it is very specific to SRAM and CMOS technologies. Okay, so memory. Two important things with memory in terms of numbers. Whoa. The first important number with memory that's going to make it useful is we're going to have what we'll call the memory address, right? So the memory address is exactly like a building address. It's a location, right? So you might have, like, in your apartment, you might have apartment 1 through apartment, 100. And it's the same thing with memory, where you're gonna have different locations from a start number to an end number. So that's one number. And the other number will be the actual data that gets stored in the memory. So that's also gonna be a number. So how you can think of that is you can think of the data as like how many people live at that address, right? So you might have address 13, and in address 13, you're gonna have 7 people, right? And we're starting really basic, but it will get, more nuanced as we go. I'm just trying to lay a good ground foundation. If you watched my video on digital signals, you'll know that we can convert these numbers into binary. So instead of 13, we can display that as 1101 in binary. And instead of 7, we can display that as 0111. Okay, and that's just a simple decimal to binary conversion. So we store our data, right? Our data gets stored as a bunch of what are called bits, and it gets stored at an address, which is also described by bits, okay? And for the purpose of our talk, we're going to go with 4 bits long. 4 bits long is appropriately called a nibble because it's half a byte. A byte is 8 bits. But generally, you're not going to see memory this small. Normally, you're going to see memory with way more bits, at least bytes. But in order for me to draw some of the diagrams, if I drew like bite-sized diagrams with 8 bits, it would get out of hand really quickly. So we're gonna stick with the nibble size for now. Okay, so let's start with the data portion of these two numbers. And like I said, it's stored as a bunch of bits. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna break it down and we're gonna talk about how we store a single bit first. So how do we store a single bit? We store the data by voltage, right? So we measure a 1 as high voltage and a 0 as low voltage, or no voltage even, ground. So how we store that is we store that in a thing called a capacitor. Okay? And if you're not familiar with electrical engineering, or you're not familiar with these components, what a capacitor is a capacitor is basically like a tank of water. Okay? Except instead of storing water in it, it stores charge. So what we do when we want the value of the capacitor to be 1 is we pump in a bunch of charge until it's full, and then it's high voltage from holding a bunch of charge. And we want it to be a value of 0. All we do is we pull the water out, pull the charge out, and then it goes down to no voltage, right? So we have our capacitor that stores the data. It stores it as a 1 or a 0 depending on how it's charged. Now, if we follow our analogy of the capacitor being a water tank, all water tanks leak, right? And so do capacitors. So if we just leave a capacitor charged over time, it'll discharge, and the charge in it will just leave. So how do we combat that? Well, we actually use a full circuit where we pair capacitors for every bit of data. So we pair capacitors, and what we have in between them is a circuit. Whoops, give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So what we have is a circuit that looks something like this. And I'm going to sort of gloss over what this circuit does. It basically is a pair of inverters, and the importance of it is what it does is it makes sure that there's always one capacitor full and one capacitor empty. So how it does that is it just checks whichever capacitor is higher, and whichever is higher, it pumps it all the way to the top and maximizes the voltage. And then whichever one is lower, it pumps all the way down and minimizes the voltage. So that means that you will always have one capacitor full and one capacitor empty. So that way, if you have your supposedly full capacitor on this side, right? This is the capacitor that's supposed to be full. If it starts leaking, the charge starts seeping out, this circuit will just pump it back full again. And vice versa. You can have charge leak into capacitors too. And so if this capacitor is supposed to be, if the other capacitor is supposed to be empty and you have charge leak into it, this circuit will pump the charge out and it will keep that capacitor empty. Okay? So this is the basics of your memory cells. It's two capacitors that should always be in opposite states. And this central circuit just maintains them, and it regenerates whatever value they're supposed to be at. Okay, so now that we know how our memory maintains what it is, and it doesn't degrade from 1s to 0s, or somehow go from 0s to 1s, how do we read and write? Okay, so if we have that same circuit with our capacitor tanks of water or tanks of charge, that is ugly. How we read it is we need to be able to tell if there is water in that tank, right? So what we have is we have what is called a pass transistor. Okay? So what a pass transistor is it's essentially an electrically controlled door. So when I draw the diagram, right? This is the pass transistor. How you should think of it is you should think of it as a door where this is one side of the door and this is the other. And this is the electrical control. So if we give it electricity, then it will connect these two sides. All right? And if it doesn't have electricity, then these two sides stay separated. Okay. So when we read and we need to check how much charge is in this capacitor, what we do is we feed electricity to this pass transistor, open the door, and then what we do is we just wait and see if charge comes out, right? We open the door to the water tank and we see if water comes out. What happens if it's supposed to be 0? Well, no water comes out, but just to verify, what we also do is we also check the other side. So the other side is exactly the same with the pass transistor door, opening it. Right? And so if this side is supposed to be dry, then this side should be wet. We open both doors and we see which side the water comes out. Technically, we actually don't need to see a lot of water or a lot of charge. We just monitor both sides and we see which side has more come out, right? Because you could have like a little bit come out of the side that's supposed to be lower. But we open both, we see which side has more water come out. If it's this side, then we know that this capacitor was charged, which would be like, you know, if this side is our value x, right? If water comes out of the opposite side, which we'll call not x, then we know that x was 0. If more water comes out of the x side, then we know that x is 1. Okay? What happens if... So that's how we read. How do we write? Well, when we write, we do the exact same thing where we open both sides, but all we do is now... Before, we were just watching to see if water came in, if charge flew in. When we need to write, we force charge it. So if we need to write our x to 1, we open the doors, right? Open the doors, and then we force charge it. And this side, we pull charge out to ensure the other side is empty. And we don't actually have to pull or push in a ton of charge. All we have to do is we have to get the voltage of this side to be higher than the voltage of this side, right? Because as soon, even if they're very close, right? If the left side is here and the right side is just barely under it, remember this circuit will push whatever one is higher up and whichever one is lower down. So all you have to do is you just have to barely push it to be higher than the other side. So that's how we write. We just force water in to the side that we want to write the 1, and we pull water out of the side that we want to write the 0. And you'll notice, like I said, the other side will always be the opposite. So whenever we refer to a single position, the other side, we can just call it not that, right? So if the left side was x, this memory cell is supposed to be x, then the right side will just be what we call not x. Okay. So now that we know how that works, right, and we can continue our design a little bit further, we know that we need to be able to read the outsides of these pipes, right? And what we said we did was we just compared them for one to be wetter than the other, or one to be more charged than the other. So what we have is we have what's called a sense amp. Okay. And that's what tells us which side is higher. It amplifies it. But it obviously needs to be connected to those. Alright, and then our sense amp gives our reading and tells us if our value is x or our value is not x, just by comparing the two. So something we should note is whenever we open the doors, right? Hi, Ash. Wait, did you change your name? It says first time chat, but I've definitely... Is it because you normally only are on the YouTube chat? I hope you're doing well. In the middle of talking about memory cells. But, as I was saying, when we open these doors, we always open them together, so we might as well connect them, right? So that when we want to light them hot, we just send the signal down one single wire and it goes to both of them. But, like I said, this whole cell is only for 1 bit. What about when we need to do the entire address? Which we always will, right? We always want to read the full address. Because any individual bit is not useful without the rest of what's called the word. And that's, you know, the whole data collection. So we need to open a lot of these doors to a lot of these cells, and we're always going to read them at the same time. So if this is one memory cell, then we need several, 4 to be precise, for our nibble structure of data. And we also want to open all the doors for all of these cells at the same time. So we might as well put them all on the same wire. Okay, so we'll say that this is... Let's label our bits. So our initial value was 0, 1, 1, 1. 0, 1, 1, 1. We'll call the first bit A, second bit B, third bit C, and the fourth bit D. E. And they're all on the same what's called word line, right? Because they together are a word, and the word line is what triggers all of them. It opens all the doors for all of them at the same time. And they all run down to a bunch of sense amps. Right? And we'll just put them all together, all the sense amps. Okay? So that is one address of our memory. It's a bunch of cells that each store a bit, and they're all put together and triggered at the same time. But we need to be able to read multiple addresses. So do we just do a bunch of these? Like, do we copy this and just have another one for every memory address? Well, you only need to read one memory address at a time. So what actually we can do is we can eliminate some of the waste. And since we only need to read one address at a time, what we can do is we can have all of our addresses share the sense amps. Okay? So what we do is that was our first word. Our next word, we'll put under it. And we'll just share the lines. And like I said, this is fine because we're only going to trigger one address at a time. So this word line triggers this address. And we'll need another word line to trigger the address below it. And then we'll have another address below it. Sorry, my diagram is very messy right now. I need to clean it up. And they all share the same sense amps. So what we do is, When we need to read address 1, we just pump energy into this line and we read it through the sense amp. If we need 2, we pump energy into this line and we read it through the sense amp, the same exact spots. We need 3, we pump it through this line and we read it through the same exact spots on the sense amp again. So that is some of the basics of the cell structure for your memory. And what I'm going to talk about next is what I learned in school from my teacher for grad school, but I remember him telling us this, but in my research prepping my lesson plan, I was unable to find supporting evidence of this. So it's very possible I'm about to spread a little bit of misinformation. But I'm going to tell you about it anyway because I think it's an interesting idea. So what you'll notice with all these memory cells sharing lines, I know what to fix this. Skinnier paintbrush. Okay. So if we have all these memory cells sharing their lines, what you need to understand is that this wire connecting to so many cells, because the cell connections are also metal, it's going to be, on some sense, it's going to be a lot of metal, and that increases what's called the capacitance. And the wire next to it is also going to have really high capacitance because it's also touching a lot of cells. And when you have 2 wires next to each other that are very close together, and both have really high capacitance, it actually increases their capacitance even more because what they do is they couple. And when it comes to digital logic, high capacitance almost always means it'll be slower. So we don't like having this massive capacitance from coupling. So what we do is we actually cheat. Instead of having them super close together, we spread out our cells for each bit. But that's a waste of space. So what do? We actually put more cells in between. And what we do is we alternate our word lines. So our first word line will be on these paths, right? That'll be our first word line. But our second word line will be on these paths, right? That'll be like here. Oh God, it's still getting so messy. We'll switch to red. And so we alternate. Evens will be on these 2. Odds will be on these 2. And that way we split up these long high capacitance wires, we separate them from each other. It's a little bit of a cheat, but I think it's a pretty cool idea. And of course, because we now have double the columns, right? Because technically we still need 4 bits, so we need 4 more columns for our A set, right? These are the A's. We still need 4 more columns for the A's further to the right, or 2 more columns for the A's, and then 2 more columns for the B's. So we double the width, and we half the height. Height gets half, width doubles. And that's also relevant, because in terms of the architecture, if you look at your whole block of cells all together, what we talked about was a nibble. Nibble is 4 bits, so you need 4 cells. If you do not use this sort of cheat, then you end up 4 cells wide. But how tall does it end up? Okay? How tall does it end up? So the nibble was 4 cells wide, but if we have nibble addresses, how tall is it? Because we need stacks of these, right? So the nibble address is going to have 2 to the 4th locations. That is 16. So what you end up with is you end up 4 wide, 16 tall. And that is a tall, skinny boy, right? But if you do the cheat, right, remember the cheat doubles the width, so then your width would be... Then your width turns to 8, and your height turns into 8 for nibble. Now, that seems to make it really square, but remember, your memory is normally not in nibbles. Your memory is normally bigger, at least bytes. What happens with bytes? Bytes, if you don't do the cheat, have 8 bits. That would be 8 wide. And if you had 8-bit addresses, that is 2 to the 8th, which is 256 different memory addresses. So now you end up 8 wide, 256 tall. That is a really, really tall skinny boy. So it's not exactly everyone's favorite shape to deal with. So cheating is especially good because this turns this into 16 by 128. Okay? So yeah, this idea of alternating the columns, or alternating the word lines between this set of columns and this set of columns, not only helps with the capacitance issues, but it also helps with just the geometry of your memory as well. Okay? Again, sorry my artwork is like super bad right now. It's way easier to do the notes on paper, so my paper notes are much cleaner, but what can you do? Okay, so let's do new page. Okay, so far we have our architecture looking like a relatively tall boy of memory cells. You have the sense amplifier at the bottom, and like I said, wires run all the way down. They're called bit lines from the memory cells to the sense amps. And that is how we store and read our data, which remember is one of the 2 numbers that's important to the memory. Okay? So we have the data, and the other thing that was important was the address. Now, if you'll remember, to access a certain address, what we did was we lit up a word line, right? And then to access a different address, we used a different word line, so we have our word lines running across like that, and our bit lines running up and down. The question is, how do we light our addresses? How do we light our word lines? So, you remember, our address is also a binary number. So what did we use? We used 13. Okay. If we have our same address, which was address 13, which in binary is 1101, right? We need to somehow turn 1101 into lighting exactly only one address. It needs to light exactly whatever. This one. Only the one word line. So how do we turn this into one hot signal? Hot being like high voltage. Not anything weird. Okay. So how do we turn a bunch of ones and zeros into a single one? Well, there are these things in digital circuits called logic gates. And if you're not familiar with a logic gate, there's one specific gate we want to use here. It's called an AND gate. Okay? So what the AND gate does is it takes multiple signals And if all the signals are 1s, then it outputs a 1. Okay? If any of the signals are not 1s, then it won't output a 1. It'll output a 0. So if we make a quick chart of ins and outs, if we have 0, 0, that outputs a 0, obviously. If we have a 0, 1, that's still just a 0. If we have a 1, 0, it's still a 0. And only if all of our inputs are 1s do we get an output. So if you haven't noticed the picture yet, the idea is we want to light only the signal with one combination, right? We want to light this address only when it's 1101. And our AND gates conveniently light up in only one scenario. Okay? So how do we use the AND gates? Well, if we're 1101 is our address, it's 13. And our AND gates need 1s, right? How do we assign signals to light the AND gate? Because if we just attach all our lines 1101, we're gonna have a 0. Okay? And that's a no-go. And what we also can't do is we can't just leave that 0 unconnected, right? Because if we leave the 0 unconnected, then this triggers for 1101, but it also triggers for 1111. So how do we address this? In our initial number, we have 4 lines, or 4 bits, so you would expect 4 signal wires. What we do is we actually cheat, right? So of our 4 signal bits, 1101, let's assign them names. We'll call this one A, this one B, this one C, and this one D. So you expect normally to be 4 signal lines, but actually we'll double them, right? So instead of just A, B, C, and D, we're also going to have what's called not A, which is, the same sort of idea as the memory block, where you just have one that's supposed to be the opposite. You have a not B, a not C, and a not D. Okay? So now instead of 4 signal wires, we have 8. Okay, so we have our A signal wire, our not A signal wire, our B, our not B, our C, our not C, our D, our not D. Right? And so when we have a memory address that we want to light up with this AND gate, we just attach it to the appropriate wire. So in this context, we want 1101. We attach it to A, we attach it to B, we attach it to not C, right? Because C is going to be a 0, so not C will turn it into a 1. And we attach it to D. A, B, C, D. Or not C, sorry. And now, whenever we get this signal, we have a 1, a 1, a 1, and a 1. And that will light the AND gate for only that one address, right? No other address will light, because no other address will have all 1s on its AND gate. Hi, giant spiders! Thanks for stopping by. We're in the middle of talking about memory and memory architecture. If you're only just tuning in, I'm sorry if you're a little bit lost. But I will try to inform you of any background knowledge if you ask about it in the things I continue to talk about. Okay, so now we have this idea where in our great architecture of memory, we have our memory cells, which are connected to word lines, right? And they're also connected to through their bit lines to the sense amps. This is memory cells. Here's the sense amps. Yes, okay. And now we have what we're calling decoders, right? Which is a bunch of AND gates. Okay? And the AND gates read the signals from, you know, your 4-bit lines. Or, not bit lines, your 4 bits which describe the address, right? Run up and down like this. There are 4 bits, but there's 8 wires. I'm not going to draw all 8. But your AND gates are connected to whichever lines are appropriate, right? But there's a problem with this, okay? There's actually a couple problems with this. Remember how earlier we talked about with the memory cells, if you have a wire that is attached to lots and lots of devices, you end up with really high capacitance. What do these wires look like? Well, if we look at, say, the A wire, for example, how many AND gates is the A wire connected to? Well, the A wire is connected to every single address that starts with a 1, right? Because that will be all the A positives. Anything that starts with a 0 will be connected to not A. But every single address that starts with a 1 will light the A wire. That means every single one of these AND gates that is corresponding to an address that starts with a 1 needs to get lit. Half of these AND gates need to get lit by this one wire. So this one wire is connected to half the addresses. If you remember, with our nibble architecture, a nibble has 16 addresses. This A wire connects to half of them, so it connects to 8. Okay? Now, 8 doesn't sound like a lot, but remember, when you scale it up from nibble to byte, it's actually 256 total addresses, and now your A line has to connect to 128. That is a lot of AND gates to connect to. So you're going to have really, really high capacitance. Okay? That's problem 1. Also, like I said, these wires are all close together. So, because they all have huge capacitance, you're going to end up with huge coupling capacitance too. Okay, so that's problem 1. Problem 2 is that we actually have, like I said, we have AND gates that are connected to 4 lines, okay? So we connect to A, B, C, D, or not A, not B, not C, or not D. The second problem that I'm hinting at is the idea of... Oh, thanks for the follow, Giant Spiders. I really appreciate it. Also, hi, Phi. It's super cool to see you in my chat. I watched the V-Theorem debut the other day, if debut is the right thing to say. But we're talking about computer memory right now. I hope it's not too cluttered and awful looking, and you're not too confused stepping in at sort of late in the lesson. Okay. But we were talking about the second issue, which is this issue of a concept called logical effort. Okay. And the idea of logical effort, if I really simplify it, is that different gate structures have different sort of speeds associated with them. And at a really basic level, it's that an AND gate that ANDs 2 signals is faster than an AND gate that ANDs 4, which is, of course, faster than, you know, one that does 5 or 6 or 8. And when we talk about the bigger architectures for memory, when we talk about byte-sized memory, you do not want an AND gate that ANDs 8. That is going to be super slow. Speed is super important here, by the way, for context, because in this grand architecture of our memory, right, we talked a lot about what electrically happens in the memory cells. The decoder, if I remember right, is actually the majority of the time for this whole thing. So the decoder really dominates our read-write speeds. We need the decoder to be fast in order to have fast memory. if they relate to neurons. Maybe you'll have to tell me. So we really need to have fast decoders to have fast memory, and both of these things are going to slow them down, right? The first thing is this huge capacitance, and the second thing is this logical effort, all right? How do we solve these issues? We can solve these issues both at the same time by splitting our decode process into two. So we'll call it pre-decode and final decode. So if in our nibble size architecture, we all decoded everything at once, that looked just like one big AND gate with 4 inputs. Our pre-decode and final decode structure will instead be 2 AND gates that both have 2 inputs, and our final decode will just AND them together. So what happens with our architecture then? Okay? Actually, I should clarify how this works. So we have one AND gate that will handle the first, right number, right? 1101, yeah. Okay. We will have one pre-decode that handles the first 2 bits. We'll call this pre-decode 1. And we'll have a second pre-decode that handles the second bits. This will be pre-decode 2. Okay? So how many options for this are there? There are 4. That's 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. Okay? So there's 4 AND gates that handle this. The second pre-decode will look identical. That'll be another 4. Okay? And then of course, for every memory address, we're going to need a final decode. So in our structure, we still need the same amount of final decode gates, right? But instead of having lines for just single bits, or the opposites of their bits, we have lines for each of these gates, right? So let me quickly reorient. So our first pre-decode will be a block that looks like this. It has gates, 4 of them. Our second decode will be another block. And now we have lines that run up from those. Tablet, please work with me. And now our lines are from the ANDs. So before we had a line for A, but now instead of a line for A, we have a line for 0, 0. Or in other words, it would be not A and not B. Now we have a combination line. In this situation, with the nibble architecture, we luck out in that before we had, if you remember right, we had A and not A, B and not B, and so on. We had 8 wires. In this situation with the nibble architecture, we still have 8 wires because it's 4 and 4. But if you scale it up, the wires actually do increase. So for byte architecture has 8 bits. So normally if you just did a direct decode, that would be 16 lines. But if you do a pre-decode and a final decode with byte architecture and you use 2 AND gates of 4, that actually turns into 32 wires. So normally, in normal situations, you end up with more wires. But how you gain value in this is before, remember, this A line lit up half of all the addresses, right? A goes to half of all the addresses. Now your line is A, B, or not A, not B. It actually only lights up 1/4 of the addresses, okay? So by reducing the number of gates that we have to connect to, instead of having to connect to every other gate, right? Now we only have to connect to every 4th. We drastically reduce the capacitance on this line. Okay? So that drastically reduces our capacitance on these lines, like I said, which is one of our problems, which has a double benefit of reducing parasitics because all the lines are so close together. The other thing it does is it downsizes the size of the AND gates, right? So before we had a single 4 AND gate, right? Which, like I said, 4 AND gates are going to be slower than 3 or slower than 2. But now what we have is only 2 AND gates. And it might surprise you, but in terms of logical effort, chaining 2 AND gates like this is still less logical effort than the 4 AND gate. If I did my math correctly. I might be like about to get fact checked for spreading false information, but I'm pretty sure I did the math correctly. And when you split into this new architecture of pre-decode and final decode, you reduce your logical effort too. So on both these fronts, we can speed up. Okay? And I think that's pretty cool. Like, you wouldn't expect that splitting this process into multiple stages would speed it up, but it does. Is there a cost to this? Yes, of course there's a cost to this, in that now instead of needing, with our byte-sized addresses, we needed 256 AND gates. Now we need those, we still need 256 AND gates, but we also need the precode precode gates too, so it would be more total devices. How many pre-decodes there are? There were 16 options for a single pre-decode. Yeah, sorry, let me quickly do some math. So if we have byte level architecture, byte would be 16 bits. So that would be 2, if we split it into 2 AND gates, it'd be 2 AND gates of, or 8 bits, 2 AND gates of 4. Going to a single AND gate of 2. There's multiple ways you could split it, by the way. But if you split it like this, then you would have 16 possible options for this pre-decode, and 16 for this pre-decode. And then of course you, like I said, have 256 final decode. So instead of just 256 gates, final decode, you now have 256 plus 32. Which, you know, is really not that many more if you're already gonna have 256. So you have to add devices, right? That is the cost of this. But what we pick up by adding these extra devices is we pick up a lot of speed. And like I said, by having a lot of speed, we can make our memory fast. Parallel processing, I would say, is maybe not an accurate term. Because if you really break down the AND gates, right? We're about to go really deep into physics. Our 8-section AND gate parallel processes all 8 inputs at the same time. It technically looks, they're like all in a chain. It's a series circuit on one side, and then the other side is it's like a parallel circuit. But more or less it processes them all at the same time, so it's still parallel, in a sense. Electrically, all the signals go through at the same time. But yeah. Whew. Okay. So that is the lesson plan. How do you guys feel about this? I sort of bumbled my way through it, I'm not gonna lie. But I think I covered a lot of the ideas that I wanted to, and I don't think I missed anything. I'm just wondering if there is stuff that I left confusing to you guys and you have questions about. Because, you know, this is certainly a page of notes that has existed of all time. Jeez. I feel like this would be like the ramblings you'd find on the wall of someone who got stuck in a bunker and was stuck there and just went mad. Well, Reaper, if it's better than your notes, I'm not gonna lie, dude. I think you should clean up your note-taking skills. If you want to learn engineering, I will happily help you work on it because this stuff is so cool to me. I remember watching your trivia and not knowing jack shit about the stuff you were talking about though, because outside of engineering, I'm a big dum-dum. Big dum-dum. Head empty. Head empty. It would help with your job? I thought you were, did I misremember in that you're like a university instructor? Nice seeing stuff you didn't know, Penbu. I'm glad you liked it, and I'm glad that I could hopefully teach you stuff that you didn't know. I know it's like a little, like I said, this is like a little bit ramblings of a mad person. Maybe I should pre-do all my notes, but that just doesn't feel as right to me because I remember always watching like Khan Academy videos and they like do all the stuff in front of you and it looks so clean and I'm like, I should do that. That's so easy to follow. And then I do it and you end up with this. Garbage. Wait, if you're a university lecturer, how does this help you? I am curious. I mean, you can tell that I don't do well drawing live. I'm just hoping I get better. I think I really screwed up here. In the future, I have to always start paintbrush size 10. That is what I need. I need paintbrush size 10. Oh, way better. I feel super bad that I didn't, that I started with this chunky 40. Holy. You teach engineers? Wait, you say basic science? Are you teaching like? Are you teaching like physics 101 or something like that? Not 101, physics 1 or something like that you teach the engineers? I'm very interested, Fi. But yeah. Maybe what I'll do is, when I do these notes, I'll make clean copies too to like release. And then people can download and read along as I make the dirty copies. Yeah, shift to make straight lines is a thing, but it's only a thing when I'm in line mode. And sometimes, you know, it's juggling between brush and line mode is... I'm sure I could hotkey it. That might be a good plan. Handouts would be nice. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things one of my favorite professors did, is he was like, I don't want you wasting effort trying to like make your own notes. I'm just gonna post the notes online and that way you can focus on the lecture, which was super good for me because I'm not even really a note taker. I prefer to focus, right? I prefer to just sit there and soak the information by watching and listening. So then him giving me notes that I wouldn't normally have was a godsend. To better craft your style towards them. Well, if you want to run experiments on me, I am more than happy to learn whatever you have to teach. Huh. It's interesting though that you say you teach biology to engineers, because do you only teach to like chemical engineers? I don't think I had to learn any bio for my engineering degree. Maybe your college is different. Maybe your university has more generalized requirements. Or maybe you're teaching bioengineers. Yeah, biomedical engineering. How are you, Hessel? I don't think I saw you speak all stream. I don't know if you just popped in, but thanks for stopping by. Biomedical is more accurate, yeah. That's pretty cool. Don't worry about it, Hessel. I don't know if you are interested in the lesson. The lesson's over, but the VOD will be up, and I will try to also edit a cleaner version and post just stream highlights to YouTube of just the lesson. Have a good one, Fi. Thanks for stopping by. Super cool to see you. Yeah, so this is computer memory, specifically SRAM. There are some variants, like there's DRAM, which instead of the whole cell being 2 capacitors, DRAM is just, it's literally just a capacitor and the pass transistor. That's a different type of memory. It's slower and it's like a little bit more susceptible to leakage and stuff like that, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm not as comfortable talking about DRAM is why I don't really want to talk about it, but that's another type of memory. You've got other sorts of interesting logic. Guy, what you say about no capacitor in the SRAM is true, but also sort of technically not true, because the capacitor is just the wire, right? Like, every wire is a capacitor, right? Every wire has capacitance. So I draw the wire because the wire is... I think the water tank analogy is good, but you're right that technically we don't put a physical capacitor element in, as much as it's technically just the wire has capacitance. And so you're right. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have drawn it. I think it's important to have the idea of the capacitance in mind, though, which is why I draw it and I make the water tank analogy. Unless maybe I am super mistaken in my understanding, which is possible. Hey, wait, I don't want to get... Why is this playing? I do not want to get copyright striked. That was dangerous. Okay. I also don't mean to argue with you because I suspect you know a little bit more about this topic than I do. But I think if I have to teach this, it is much easier to teach with the idea of there being a capacitor there. Normally your head rejects anything related to transistor-level computer logic, Hessel. Oh, well, I'm sad that you didn't get to see me actually teaching this, because I wonder if you would have understood it, or it would have been an issue to someone who has trouble understanding it. So, maybe, if you're still interested, check out the VOD. And then come back to me with questions or input, because I would really love feedback on how to be better. Yeah. That's the lesson for today. I'm glad I got people to watch, too. Maybe we'll just chill for a while, though, in case other people do have questions or just want to hang out, because I like talking with you guys. Yeah. Ooh. I was sort of stressed about teaching this all day as I was prepping the lesson plan, but I'm not too unhappy about it. I do still feel like it was a little bit... I felt sort of like I was rushing through the ideas, and I would like to maybe linger on them more. Especially because they're super interesting, and I feel like if I'm rushing through them, I don't get to really emphasize how cool these topics are. But I hope you guys still think they're cool, even if I'm not like super hyping them up. Really, Reaper? Did you know anything about this sort of stuff before you came into the stream, Reaper? Or is this completely new? How much background knowledge do you have on not just this, but electrical engineering in general? You can, if you can apply it, then it's like, I must have done a great job if you can apply it, because I don't know how this is really applicable to anything I might do in real life, unless I was literally a designer for this stuff. Ooh, similar to Minecraft Redstone. I can see how that would be applicable then. There's some super cool ideas that you could do implementing in Minecraft, and I know people already do like crazy stuff in Minecraft. I haven't actually played it yet. Something about it is a little off-putting to me. I think mainly that literally just that everything is so it's just a block shape, just throws me off. Penbu, there is someone who did build, I think it was a big thing of memory in Minecraft. Hold on, let me see if I can find the video. Yeah. Oh yeah, it was a full CPU. You're right, Gaiji. And that's... people are crazy, guys. People are crazy. Like, have you seen people, there's like in Roller Coaster Typhoon who build calculators out of roller coasters. Like, I don't even know how they come up with these ideas. But it's like based on the timing of them. They collide two carts. Rest in peace, everyone riding the roller coasters. They made Minecraft a game in Minecraft? That sounds really intense. I don't know how you would, like, do you play the game in the game, or does it sort of play itself? I don't know. I'm very interested. Let me see if I can build up... English hard. Me no speak good. Me engineer. Let me see if I can find the video of the Roller Coaster Typhoon calculator. Tycoon. Okay, here it is. Here it is. Let's watch it together. Give me 1 second. This is actually crazy, crazy stuff. Hold on. Let's go. I guess it's... I guess this is good enough for now. Okay. Check this shit out. It's literal, like, they launch several carts at the same time, and it's by, like, when they impact. And they go different routes depending on your input. I remember right at least. So that top track has 2 set. And oh my god. I'm actually worried about the potential for this background music to DCMA me. I have no idea if it will, but hopefully not. Well, I mean, it makes sense that you need a lot of tracks, because you need one for every number value. And then, of course, you need... Well, so that would be 10 for the first number. And then you would need 10 for the second number, too. So that already is 20 right there. And then that's just for, I think, the multiply side. So you would need another 20 for the add side. They impacted, and I guess that sent it down a different track. I guess the time that they impact changes what track it ends up on? Maybe? Let's see, what do we get? And then it sends the coaster out and it lands on 16. 8 times 2 is 16. We did it, boys. It's ridiculous. You know? Calculators in Roller Coaster Tycoon. Full CPUs in Minecraft. People's engineering spirit is unstoppable. It makes me feel like I'm a little bit dumb though, because I could never do any of this stuff. Okay, so we're multiplying 7. Also, I don't know if in Roller Coaster Tycoon they have like, they probably must have some level of boosters to boost the speed. But if not, then you're going purely by like momentum. Which, by the way, is how like a lot of real world roller coasters work, is they have like a couple boosters, but for the most part, momentum carries you through the tracks. But if the timing is like really heavily momentum based and just raw kinetic energy, then I don't know how they really calculate so precisely to make these land at the right times. It might just be like guess and check, which would be very reasonable, but that would be a lot of time spent guess and checking. Yeah, Penbu, this must, like, I have to imagine this was like months of work. Oh, there's the impact. I also, I don't know, I've never played Roller Coaster Tycoon, but I don't understand why when the carts impact, only one of them explodes. Rest in peace, though, that one set of riders. Other set of riders, perfectly fine. And yeah, so 7 times 7, we end up with 49. The calculator continues to work. And they have the adding tracks too. But do you think this person in real life is an engineer? Is my question. Because I would think that someone with this sort of mindset might be, but I also feel like most of the time I see people do like crazy shit like this in games, they're actually like not an engineer. mean, maybe this was a huge bluff, and he made a setup that only worked on those 3 equations. But I sort of doubt it. This is like some lunatic level effort, though. Crazy, crazy stuff. Numbers, then using the height of the tracks as selectors. I don't think that they alternate the number of carts at all. From what it seems like is how you input your numbers in this input is you have like Y tracks or forking tracks that you choose to shift off at the number 2 spot vessel if you wanted to. I think the number of carts always stays the same. But this is kind of nutty. Let's see the Minecraft CPU, which is also super nutty. Okay. Okay, so this took 7 months. At least we know. Oh, don't worry about it, Hassel. Hold on. Let me reestablish my background music because I'm really afraid of these DCMAs from these videos' background musics. I wonder why it's so colorful. I mean, I'm not super familiar with Minecraft because I don't play, but are the different color blocks just for organization? I mean, that would make sense, right? In that you want to keep things organized, but I don't know if they actually affect like speed or timing or anything like that. Yep, just for organization, Reaper? That makes sense. Being organized is really conducive to being productive. But I also feel like if my workspace is clean, it's a sign that I haven't gotten anything done. I'm a big believer in to get things done, you have to make a mess. Thanks for the follow, Ashleana. Thank you, thank you. How are you doing today? I really appreciate the extra follows. Different colors for the lines that do different things. Yeah, but if that's the case, then what really scares me is how big a block of one color is. Like, if that is one, like, single logic gate worth of logic for that many blocks, then that's terrifying. Because these structures are massive. Holy mother of... Chungus juice. 4 kilobytes. Is 4 kilobytes also more than they had on the, like... What was it? The lunar lander? I can't remember how much memory is on that. Let me check. Are we about to see Snake? Oh, Tetris! Huh. It is Snake. It's pretty sick. I'm also really curious how they make the screen work. Because I'm actually super unfamiliar with how, like, the logic in Minecraft works. I mean, to be fair, I'm also not that familiar with how the logic in, like, real computers works. I only know at some basic level, but someone's gonna do it, guys. Someone's gonna make Doom run in Minecraft. It's going to happen. You know it. Cause some person is probably already, like, someone's made Doom run on God knows what. Someone's probably made it run on like a pregnancy test or some crazy shit. So they made their server available. I'd be like super afraid to make my server available with that if someone could like just go and destroy it. Like, isn't that a possibility? Built the internet in Minecraft. Yeah, like, people in Minecraft are crazy. Is this legit? It must be, but how many hours you must spend in this game? And how many hours you must spend just learning to do this before you even start the project is probably crazy. This probably gets more design effort than a lot of commercial products. Because you end up with a bunch of really half-baked commercial products too out there in like the real world. So like, I don't know. Making something like this could be, oddly enough, a really cool thing to put on your resume. But I also... it would be like a little weird to like, you're going into an interview and they're like, what are your personal projects? And you're like, here, let me show you my Minecraft server. Doom already exists? Yeah, that sounds very likely. Yeah, that makes sense, guy. Because I actually am not super familiar with how different, like, actual CPUs are from, like, the CPU in your computer, how different it is from an FPGA. But I did do, like, a little bit of FPGA design in my class, too. Where essentially what you're doing is you're rerouting connections between blocks that already, for the most part, have logical functions defined in them. Or I guess, practically, nowadays, a lot of the FPGAs, like, you can actually program the blocks themselves. Oh? Hey. Frog? Cow? Wait, no. Bat? Anyway. Do any of you guys do, like, crazy stuff in games like this? Not yet, you mean, Reaper. You were talking about how you could use the learning earlier. So, maybe you will do something like this. Combination locks are already pretty cool. That's also a really cool topic. Because when I learned how those work, I thought it was pretty, pretty satisfying understanding. Actually, maybe you're talking about a different type of combo lock than I am, but I'm thinking of like the padlocks. Like master lock padlocks that you use to like lock your locker at school. Okay, Penboot, you say not in games? It's kind of crazier for it not to be in game, because for it to not be in game, that means you're dealing with real stuff. You're like actually building stuff. Just super neat. You should be super proud. I mean, I spent a lot of my life learning engineering, and I know, like, I'm fairly confident in myself as an engineer, and that I have a very good breadth of understanding. But I have like little to no personal projects to show for it. So in a sense, I've squandered my degree, squandered my learning. But part of the fun for me is just learning it. It's just understanding the knowledge is really cool. And it's maybe, I think my employers maybe don't like it that I learn a topic and then I'm like, okay, I learned this. Now I want to go work on something else so I can learn something else. That's what I really love. I love learning. And I hope you guys enjoy learning too. And I hope if you enjoy learning, I'm able to teach you and you can enjoy learning from me. That's weird, Penbu. I mean, does being tested on it actually ruin it for you? Because I honestly, I never really felt like tests were a big stressor for me. Maybe that's because I know that I retain information well enough that I normally do well on tests. But I normally, like, my mindset is even if I'm going to fail the test, I'm going to fail it. It is what it is. You just roll with the punches. So as long as, like, what I'm learning is interesting, I'm happy. Even if I'm going to end up tested on it. Like, right now what I'm doing is I'm taking a class in, reliability, which I thought would be super boring, but is actually super interesting. And I have my final coming up in a couple weeks, but I don't really mind, because having learned it, I'm already very satisfied with a lot of the topics that got taught. You'd just rather not do tests. Yeah, that makes sense. I get it. I think I would rather go through the process that is school, including all the testing, than work. And maybe that's just me being like a Zoom-lennial who hates work, but if I had the option to just, you know, crank out bachelor degrees for the rest of my life in different topics, I think I would 100% choose that over working. So is this, am I looking at like a switch matrix in Minecraft here? Minecraft players? Hook me up. Is that what this is? It's just, each of these is a different switch to reroute the energy to different places as an input? Because that's what I feel like this is. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I don't know what else it would be. What else do we have? I mean, people do such crazy stuff. Calculator? Like... Oh my god! But there, now that I see it in all white, I understand what you're saying about the the colors for different lines to differentiate, because that in all white was like, I think you belong in an asylum if you build a circuit that is a mess of wires and every single wire is white. You're like a lunatic. You're already a lunatic if your ground wires aren't black, even. You're a heathen. Panbu, it being an option, just an expensive one, means it's like not feasible. Right? Like, you could say there's the option to just spend my entire life only traveling the world and never working, and that's just an expensive one. I don't think it is. It's literally not an option for me. Too much money. I wish. I wish I could spend my entire life just sitting at home playing games, watching anime. This season, by the way, for anime is like... There are so many bangers. So many banger sequels. There's Mushoku Tensei. There's Demon Slayer. My Hero Academia. Season going hard. Reaper, if it's past your expertise, that's fine. You just learn as you go. Right? You just take the dive and you slowly pick it up. That's something that I think I lacked drive to do when I was younger, right? When I was a younger, less motivated Belle. But now, as I get old and I approach hag status, I find myself more willing to chase after opportunities. In terms of learning, socially, even just picking up hobbies, right? Like streaming is just... I was like, okay, you know, let's just do it. And now I'm here. Hopefully we'll continue to be here. Hopefully you guys like it too and will also continue to be here. But if not, that's also cool. But I used to be like either some mix of too lazy to start new things or like a little too intimidated. And now I'm just like, just send it. Just send it. And whatever happens, happens. You know? You can decide later on if you're not happy doing it. Granted, I'm an engineer and I have, you know, good income, so I'm stable, so I'm not really struggling in any aspect like that in time or money, but I think it's important to just sort of go for things. Wait, Penbu, can people script building in Minecraft? Does that, like... I almost feel like that's cheating. But... I mean... maybe it's not. Like, I guess it's not really cheating, because if you build stuff in real life and you have a CAD tool, right? You have a CAD tool to automatically do all your traces in your circuit board, that's not cheating. So, maybe that's not cheating in Minecraft either. But it really astounds me that people would, like, have a script to play their game for them. Because I feel like that takes a lot of the fun out of it. But I can also understand not wanting to sit there and place blocks for, you know, 5,000 hours. 5,000's definitely too many, but, you know, I just think it's very possible that people place blocks for several, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 hours. Gosh. Yeah. People do some pretty crazy stuff. And it's just really cool to see it. This is what I really love about engineering, sort of just learning how people made it work. Right? Just like the stuff that I talked about with memory, like, I didn't even know, it hadn't even occurred to me, like, the capacitance problems, right? Until my professor started talking about it, and he's like, oh yeah, so how we solve this is, you know, we change our shape, we find these little cheats, you know? It's cool stuff. And I really admire these people who've really mastered their arts. I don't know if I'll ever end up, you know, a master of anything specific, because I find myself constantly wanting to learn other things and just end up as a jack of all trades, but maybe one day. Maybe I'll become a master of being a jack of all trades. Gosh. I'm realizing that I haven't eaten and I'm super hungry. So I'm probably going to leave and call it a night for stream pretty soon, guys. Maybe another minute or so. But I'm super happy that you guys came to watch. I hope you guys could learn a lot. And I hope you had fun, right? I hope you guys had a good time. If you like this content, you know, just stick around, follow, join my Discord, check my YouTube. I promised a video last week, and then I am super behind and not completed it, but I'm working on a video, I promise, guys. Life has just been like a little everywhere. But video, working on another lesson next week, next Tuesday. I think Teaching Tuesday is a appropriate title. I wasn't sure in the beginning because I wasn't sure if it's like appropriate to call myself a teacher, but I think so. So next Tuesday we'll talk about something. I'm not sure what yet. And video at some point. Alright, I think I'm gonna end stream because I am super hungry. Have a good night, guys. And I will see you next time. I'll kill the YouTube stream first, and then Twitch, we will try and maybe raid someone. Alright. Later, YouTube.